Hello, everybody. I'm Harvey Silverman, back for another episode of NGCOA Golf Business Live Tech Talk. We are spanning the globe once again, introducing to our audience the CEO of Tagmarshal, Bodo Sieber. Bodo is coming to us from Cape Town, South Africa. So the timing of this is working out for all of us. And for Bodo, it's a chance to, as a NGCOA Smart Buy member, to talk to us a little bit about Tagmarshal, the technology, and what he sees happening in the future with things like pace of play and course management. Bodo, welcome to Tech Talk.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harvey, for having me. Always great to chat with you.
It is. We saw each other just about a month ago at MCOR, and we've seen each other a couple of times since. And we've recognized a couple of things in common. First, I didn't tell you this earlier, but I am a former GPS guy. I worked and sold for Uplink 22, 23 years ago, aging myself here. But enjoyed that opportunity, learned a lot about what made GPS a valuable technology for golf courses, not just golfers. I was more in tune to what it meant for golf course operators, and we can talk a little bit about that too. So yes, we have that in common, so I'm knowledgeable, I guess. Maybe a little scary knowledgeable about the technology and how all this works, coming from satellites in the sky that nobody sees or knows where the heck they are necessarily. So Bodo, tell us a little bit about your founding of Tagmarshal, when that happened, and what you've created and bring to the market today.
Yeah, sure. So Tagmarshal, as you can imagine, was conceptualized during a very slow round of golf where my business partners, Craig and John, were stuck behind two groups on the 14th hole. And they had a lot of time to think as young players. There's got to be a better way to manage this. Where's the marshal? Why do we have to wait? It's ruining my day. I'm sure it was a convenient excuse for the bad score they had shot at the time, but they contacted me and my technology business partner to evaluate, could there not be an opportunity to help the golf industry manage on-course operations better with technology. We thought that there was, and we built an MVP, and then in 2015 we market launched in the US, and we got a bit lucky in that our first partner course was none other than Erin Hills. We did a bit of a PR release saying, okay, here's a new technology and this is what we're looking to do. And they responded to that and said, that's exactly what we're looking for. When can we start, right? So you don't often get to start your business journey with a top 100 partner. Obviously, at the time, they had already been earmarked to host the US Open in 2017. And they've been fantastic partners to us ever since. They still are to this day. So this is our first and very oldest partner that we had. We were very lucky in that with Erin Hills and Whistling Straits, obviously having a bit of a friendly rivalry. Erin Hills meant to brag about their new technology to the team at the Straits. They said, oh, we also want to take a look. Oh, this is exactly what we've been looking for. Can we do a pilot? And 6 weeks later, we had signed another top 100 golf course. And on went the story of how we started to capture market share in Wisconsin. But this is now a few years back, and we really started out as a technology that was looking to speed up the game. But what we have created now over the last couple of years is a technology that really brings a new dimension to managing on-course operations, and that includes anything that moves on the golf course, including your superintendent fleets and obviously all your vehicles and any player out there, whether they be walking or in a golf cart. And there's actually quite considerable business leverage that comes out of that goes way beyond making the game faster. But we can talk in a bit more detail to that.
And as I recall, when you first entered the market, the idea of a tag, which was a device that could clip on to a player's bag or a cart or anything else, but it was really, it wasn't a cart-mounted GPS screen with yardages and things like that. It was really about a tracking device. Is that correct?
Correct. So our mission was always to be a business tool for the operator, right? So we are a software company that is a specialist in data visualization and also bringing GIS data onto mapping. So you can think of it as a Google Maps or Waze of course management, right? Where you have live traffic, you know exactly what's happening. But because there's a business-to-business angle to it, all the back-end data that Google has and use for their own purposes, we have, but we give it to the golf courses so that they can better understand their business. And that goes along a number of metrics, obviously, that matter, which we'll unpack in a minute, I'm sure. But our goal was always to drive and to build the best possible software solution. But for us to have that software solution fed with data, we needed a reliable source. And at the time, we found a really good partner that was off-the-shelf trackers that we could then use, that could do 2 turns in a day, be charged overnight, and had the robustness of also working at a place like Bandon Dunes or Carnoustie or Kingsbarns in Scotland, where you get inclement weather, just as well as it would in Florida. And this was really the start as a data tool or a data aggregator. And really what it does is it gets clipped onto a golf bag, it goes with a caddy, and we started in the walking golf space. And then branched into the cart space from there with other technology over the years. But this is where it started, and it's still going now. And obviously the system has its 4th iteration now as a back-end tool, but we're still running on part of our clients are still running on a tag as the data delivery mechanism, if you will.
So with so many golfers today, and probably more than half having their own personal distance device, a watch, or it's on their phone, or they've got a laser device. What I'm hearing is that your system and the software with it is more valuable as a course management technology than as a player amenity. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct. So the evolution of our product was that we started in the walking space. Then we had clubs that said, well, we've got quite a few golf carts that wouldn't it make sense to have a more permanent tracker in them so that we know where they're at, and we can also control them and set up geofences so that we know if they're in an area that they're not supposed to be in. So then we developed that angle, and all with the goal to feed the back-end data, the back-end system, the live management, and the analytics sort of deep dive opportunity for an operator so that they can. And you must remember in the early days, for us, 2015, 2019, golf was in quite a defensive state as an industry, right? There were more courses competing for a slowly shrinking player base. Mm-hmm. And the ones that wanted to be there tomorrow, they said, well, we're going to bet on technology to help us be more efficient. And we're going to bet on technology to help us increase our opportunity with in terms of additional tee sheet gains, if we can have them as on the days that matter, that we are full, few as they might be at the time, that might be 2-3 days a week. And we're going to bet on technology because we want to make sure that our team can do a better job with fewer hours, right? So those were the things that we were looking to tick at the time, and quite a defensive sort of state in the industry, but always built with that in mind. And then when the courses were having amazing success around this and saying, well, this is really helping and driving our engine commercially, but also making players much more happy because we've got control over pace and flow of play, they said, well, now that we've got the system, how can we add more value to the golfers themselves?
Mhm.
If we're having this installed in a cart, can we not have a display version that also speaks to the players, gives them range finding, all of those things? And so we said, okay, fine, let's see if we can develop this. And that is something that we then also brought to market, and also look to modernize and look at the options that the latest version of technology can give you. Because if you think about it, the iPhone came out in 2007. The iPhone 1 now looks like an ancient relic. And how things have developed in 15 years or so has just been tremendous, right? So obviously a couple of years in technology, things make big leaps forward. And that is exactly what we were able to also then bring into that latest product option. But again, everything is geared to feeding data into the operation so that operators can get more done with fewer man hours, and obviously much more control over things.
All right, so give us a little idea of how that data does enable operators to save on labor costs. We know that the labor pool or golf courses are having a great deal of difficulty hiring capable, competent people to fill different roles at the golf course. That's everywhere from maintenance to golf shop operations to golf course operations. So what are you providing your clients with data that can help them cut back on some of those tasks or hours that it took tasks to be completed?
Sure. So firstly, thanks also to the NGCOA for being so active in driving research and in informing what are the key priorities for the industry. Because last year they brought out a very informative survey where pace of play was measured as a top 3 priority for operators, right? They said 83% of them said that's key. We understand that this is critical for the golfer experience. So the question then is, how many of them have a program to really manage it? And how was this done in the past, right? So in the past, and this is really a little bit like, how did we get around in 2005, right? We used to have a paper map, and we used to listen to traffic radio, and if we got lost, we asked the way. Unless we were a man, we would just stay lost and hopefully find our way, right? If we had a lady sitting next to us, she would eventually get us there. But how do we find our way now? Well, we open up maps and Google Waze, and it tells us where to go, and it live tracks our position. And if we take the wrong turn, it'll correct us, and also it gives us live traffic information. So if you transfer that to the golf course, how did we use to manage pace of play? Well, we had a couple of rangers or marshals out, right, that used to look for gaps in the field. They were very often at the wrong place at the wrong time. And also when they went up to players and said, hey guys, you're slow, will you speed up? The players would say, no, it's not us, the guys in front of us, get lost, right? I'm paying good money to play, who are you to call me slow? So this has been quite an impossible task to manage in the past. Also, right now, anyone who might do this, like from an operator's point of view, well, what you got to pay these guys, that spend 8 hours out there looking for problems on the golf course. Either it's free golf, then to what level do you get accountability and results, or it's $20 an hour, which seems a lot to pay for something that is looking for a problem, right? So this is where the technology obviously brings immediate line of sight, where a good understanding, a preemptive understanding of where are the bottlenecks, when are they forming, how can we get ahead of it before it becomes a 20-player problem, and manage things. And obviously that's where an interface with the player automates that too. So where in the past it took a lot of effort to try and have this impossible task of trying to get people to move, now you can have a conversation based on data. You are very accurate if you're having this conversation. You can show the player, hey guys, you're a bit out of position according to my system. Please will you help me get back in position? And this is how we're going to do it. Very easy conversation to have. and you can be accurate instead of looking for the problems and very often not finding the problems. The system shows you exactly where to go, or the system interface will tell the player so they can self-manage. And this is really proven to work, right? Because once you have a big choke point out on your golf course, you cannot get that time back. It's virtually impossible to untangle once you're 40 minutes out, especially on the back nine. It compounds and impacts so far into your day. So if you're just proactive around it, these sort of things won't happen. And also there is a big component in that the players get very defensive, especially if they're addressed in a way that mentions the word slow, right? So the moment we have data, the moment we have some coaching around, okay, this is how you can position the problem a bit differently, just say, hey, you're out of position according to the system, this becomes a non-confrontational issue, and the player's actually saying, oh, I didn't realize. Of course, not a problem, we'll catch up. And now we've saved the day, right? So this is, this is how the technology really helps. And what many clubs are doing then is they're saying, okay, the system actually takes care of things 5 days of the week. Only on our top busy days, Saturday morning, Wednesday morning, whenever, that's when we need to keep an eye for 3 hours rather than 9 hours. And we can really trim down the time that we need to spend on it. Also, there's been an inordinate amount of time that you needed to potentially spend on people coming into the clubhouse saying, this was a 6-hour round of golf. It felt like 5 hours. Why have you done it to me again? I want to comp, right? All of these things need to be managed. Or at a member club, tempers boil over very quickly around this. You've seen this before, I'm sure. Well, if you have data, it's a short conversation, and also you can just keep the players informed, and you can, data doesn't have emotions, right? It's just a pure facts conversation, and it very, very quickly changes the culture at a club. And it gives a very firm footing for the people that need to manage things. So there's really literally hours saved every week around this. And the system tracks data of every single round, every single second, every single day automatically. And it's a lot to go back on when it comes to live management, but also the back-end and analytics side of things.
So could a course use your data, or maybe they already are, to create player profiles or even member profiles if it's a private club, and use that to help that particular player or member who is a slow player understand that they're slow, help them understand how to speed up their play, or, probably the most radical is, hey, look, I can't let you out at 9 o'clock in the morning because you're too damn slow. I'm going to put you out at 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock when all the other slow players are playing. Is your data capable of drilling down to individual players' pace of play?
Yes. So one of the things that we've obviously done is we've got integrations with a number of tee sheets. I think it's about 20. So you name them, we have them, and we can now feed that data into our system. And not only do you have a benefit in your live management, because if you click on a group on the golf course, hey, that's Mr. Silverman, right? And these are the players in the group, and you can address people accordingly, and you can manage the service around them, especially at a private club, with much more certainty. But we are tracking and building a player profile on a player on every single round that they play at the course. So very quickly, even if a single player sometimes does well if he plays in combination with other players, very often the cream rises to the top, right? And the heavier, the slower players, they drop to the bottom. So then you can look at your list of profiles and see, okay, this player actually is delaying others on a regular basis. And sometimes you can then have an educational conversation, right? Here's what we're finding. And also the players, where we have data on every round, we can look at a track map. We can literally see this is how the player progressed. Here's where they're starting to fall out of position. Maybe there's a certain hole that they're struggling with, or a certain setup on a certain day. We can then backtrack that, and we can potentially educate them on how to approach it differently, because obviously players want to be compliant. They don't want to be called out on that. But also we can help then some, like you suggested, and I need to be diplomatic around this, but some managers then use this to influence their lottery system, right, on a Saturday, because they realize if this group of X players percentage, if I give them the 7:30, 8 o'clock, then I'm causing a problem in terms of management for the rest of the day. So those tea times may not be available until the player has proven that they can actually lead the pace, if you will, right? So this is absolutely part of the program, and it's quite amazing what happens once you have this information and how you can then better manage all of these conversations, because it's incredibly sensitive, especially at a member club. And the way that people used to try and manage this is to send warnings and written warnings and letters, and this is just completely uncomfortable, right? So now with a bit of data, you can just have a conversation. There's no emotion in play, and we can work on a solution together.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be diplomatic about that, Bodo. I think you can be quite forthright with letting people know how to use that data and how to make their operations and the vast majority of their golfers happier than they are now. So don't hold back on that.
You laugh how many times it's a member of the committee or the club president that floats to the bottom of that pace ranking, and then you need to decide how diplomatic you want to be as a golf director, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I want to diverge just slightly to the course management technology, the things like electronic fencing and so on, which was what really sold me when I was selling GPS. Was, hey, look, these are these great features that golf courses can use. The superintendents love it. We don't have to have carts rolling into places we don't want them, especially the ponds and the streams and so on. All those elements I thought was more valuable to a golf course than trying to sell the amenity and claiming that, hey, we're going to increase pace 20 minutes on every round that's played. It's probably why I got fired, because I didn't buy that from the company I was working for. But yeah, the electronic fencing and the other elements on an operational side. Tell us a little bit more about how you've developed that.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is geofencing, right? And the way that works is that obviously the cart that has a tracker built in has got an awareness of where it is in space. And then you can literally draw a fence over a map and say, this is an area I do not want this cart to go into. So the way that we manage this is we have a visual and an audible alert that alerts the player and tells them, hey, you're in an area you're not supposed to be in. Please will you back out. And the alternative to doing that is to just dead stop the cart and only allow the player to reverse out, which we've done a lot of research into. This is a major player experience detractor, and also obviously slows down the round. So we decided to rather give the player the benefit of the doubt that once they hear and see that they're not supposed to be in an area, they'll respond accordingly and get back on the cart path or move out of the area. And we're finding that this works really well. So the benefit here is obviously you can keep people compliant, and also because you have the player profile linked to this golf cart, if somebody were to really misbehave, you know exactly who that was and where, and you can show them on the track map at this hole at this time. You were in this cart and you transgressed, you went into an area you're not supposed to, and you did damage Y, right? So this is very helpful, and because obviously the players understand that and the system interacts with them, they also understand these are the areas I'm not supposed to go in. Okay, I'm going to be compliant, and that obviously saves superintendents a lot of headache and also a lot of time fencing off certain areas that they're trying to protect. But the nice thing about the data collecting of the carts and walkers all the time is also that we can now generate another point of value to the superintendents, and that is a heat map. So a heat map basically that shows this is where people go, this is where they spend a lot of time, this is where they cut potentially corners as well, and this is where they never go, right? So you can see the opportunity here is that you can see compaction potentially before you can actually recognize it, just by having certain areas, depending on certain setups, really light up bright red because players go there and drive there a lot. And then there's also savings opportunities, especially on certain fairways that a lot of courses are utilizing where players never go, right? There is just nobody ever there. So why would we throw the same amount of labor hours, fertilizer, irrigation onto an area that we can actually adjust and make a bit more maintenance friendly? So this is another opportunity that this data brings. And especially in areas that are water stressed, this is becoming highly interesting for superintendents, as you can imagine.
Right, where courses are taking non-playable areas, removing that turf, replacing it with drought-tolerant vegetation or something else, because, hey, balls don't go there, so why do we need turf? And you're right, that's especially important. That's been happening out in California now for a number of years, also heavily in Palm Springs and the Los Angeles area, Arizona as well. So let's get back to pace. What you sent me this morning was really interesting, and I'm curious to know how you, as you're working with a client or working with a potential client, how you're explaining your measurement of pace performance. Because as you put it, there's average time versus goal time. There's pace breakdown and pace distribution. And there's also pace breakdown by time of day. So as you put it in the email you sent this morning, it's unlikely, if not impossible, to have a 20-minute improvement across the board in pace of play. There's going to be a certain percentage of rounds that are going to be played much faster than what the goal time might be. There's some that'll be right on the button with what that goal time is. And there's going to be others that are going to be slower or quite a bit slower. So explain a little bit about how you counsel your clients in understanding these metrics.
Yeah, so the classic metric of how we're trying to get a handle on how we're performing is obviously what is our average round time versus our goal time, right? So the first question to ask is, how do we get to that goal time in the first place, right? How do we know that this course is supposed to be played in 4 hours and 10 minutes, or in 4 hours and 30 minutes, or in 3 hours and 50 minutes? How do we know that? So that is very often where there is some spot check data that's sampled, or we're working on a certain set assumption that a par 3 is supposed to be played in this time, par 4 that time, par 5 this time, and then we work out how much time there is. So this is what's the runtime for the course. So this is how things used to be done in the past. But like you're saying, because there's all shapes and sizes of players, there's other variables like our setup, like weather. This is a space that has a lot of variables to consider, right? So how we go about it is we set up our system, and then it first tracks data for a week, and then we have more information than the course has ever had already, right? Because now we've tracked 150, 200 players every day for a week, where previously the spot checks were on individual groups, on individual days, on a start day, end day, start time, end time. So now we have tracking data of every hole in that week, and that gives us a good indication of what a suitable goal time should be. Yeah, so we want to get an understanding of what is the actual realistic runtime hole by hole, and then how do we get to a total goal time, including a turn time, right? You have a halfway house, we want to understand that. So then we have a realistic baseline. Yeah, so the way that things used to be measured is we had more or less an indication of what the goal time should be. And maybe that was set 5 years ago, right? but we're still running with that. Okay, so now we have an indication of what that is based on actual data that we got from now. So the next consideration is, well, what is the average round time? And obviously the average round time, where it is an easy, logical way to measure ourselves against the benchmark. Average, unfortunately, are also very bad because they hide all the outliers. If you think average temperature, if you think average house price, if you think average height of a human, right? You're a tall guy, I'm a tall guy.
Average golf score.
Exactly, right. So it hides the outliers. It hides the fact that some guys on an incredibly tough course shoot 61, and others on a very easy course shoot 140, right? So it averages things out. So the average is actually a really bad indicator to measure performance with. So while we give that to the course, we're actually saying you need to be a little bit smarter and look at, and obviously with data automatically being collected, that is quite easy to illustrate. How do we break down the time that gets played versus your goal time? And what we then very often find, and you've seen this movie before, if you get the first round out, you can probably play a course that's played in 420 in 3 hours 45 because there's nobody ahead of you, right?
Right.
So you're now pushing down average versus if you're teeing off at 11:30, well, the course already a mess, you're probably going to play it in 4 hours and 50, and that's just how it is, right? But not so. So we're looking at what's the breakdown, and then that really gives an indication of the quality of the experience that we're delivering as a golf course. Because if 50% of our rounds that we're serving up, even if the average round time looks okay or just slightly off, because we have so many quick rounds, twosomes, what have you, that are bringing the average down, there's still 40-50% of the rounds that are 10 minutes over, 30 minutes. Sometimes it's 30% of the rounds are 40 minutes over. So 30% of your 200 players today have played 40 minutes longer than they thought they would. And we can then show wait times as well, right? We can show T-box wait times, which is obviously a key frustrator for players.
Right.
Now, once you have this understanding, you can then go and obviously live manage accordingly where are the holes where we often find choke points, and also live manage if a group falls out of position, let's get onto them and help them get back in position before they impact 15 players behind them. And everyone's day is half an hour longer than they expected, right? So live management is key. But really looking at the data with a bit more depth is obviously where technology is very helpful. I'd like to talk about the strategies that a lot of the clubs that we work with then can deploy, and obviously we teach them how to do that, and the results that they then get. If you're okay with that, and one of them that's fairly close to you is obviously Pebble Beach. So with the understanding of, okay, certain times of day have got a certain runtime, they now stagger their goal time approach. So Kiowa does the same. There's a couple of hundred clubs of ours that now do this, where it's not a one-size-fits-all goal time that gets applied to daily management, but they're saying what we have seen is our course can be played in 3 hours and 30 minutes, right? So we are setting our start goal time for the day at 3:30. And we want to manage things in line with that. Then we stagger this up by 10, 15 minutes for our next slot of tee times. And then we go up, and then we go to 4. Then in the afternoon, we might go to 4:20. This is obviously not Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is a tough, long course. But this is how we can then manage certain slots of the day accordingly. And ideally, we want to then also find players that are willing to and want to play more quickly, or we will have newer players that want to take their time and shuffle them into the times of the day that are not that sensitive, right? Where we might play in 4:20 and we're quite happy. But once we bring that control in, it's amazing what happens to the average round time. The average round time now really comes down by 30 minutes. But the key is that there used to potentially be a critical time with lots of holdups and lots of bottlenecks, say, around 90 minutes into the round from the 8:30 tee times onwards, where you would be 40, 50 minutes over in your round at that point, and you would wait at every hole. So what our data shows is that if you manage things in this way, you can bring that time down by 50 minutes, and things flow and there's no holdups. So your effective result is that now 80% of your rounds come through on pace or quicker, right? Because you have your day mapped out according to the best possible flow, and you manage things accordingly. It's a much tighter way of managing things, but the system helps you do that hard yards and the work around it. And we just need to keep an eye and stay on top of the outlier groups that do fall out of position before they destroy everyone else's experience. So a mixture of the live data and understanding how the day maps out, those are some of the strategies. And then you can look at how can we tighten intervals at some of the quicker times and generate additional capacity, which is highly successful. And obviously, at such a highly leveraged business as a golf course in terms of fixed costs, any additional capacity that you can put out is straight bottom line, a profit opportunity, basically. And this is where a lot of the resorts are getting very excited and literally making hundreds of thousands of additional dollars by creating some more capacity that they never had before, alongside everyone else's experience getting better. So this is where the science of this gets quite interesting for a data geek like myself. But the nice thing is that we're really making it easy for the operators, and it's very plain to see for them once they see the data visualization and how things stack up, and once they learn how to read it a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Bodo, this has been fascinating, and is probably something that we could continue talking for another couple hours. You and I, again, have things in common, including our meeting and talking with the late Bill Yates, who was the pace of play guru for the USGA. But we have to end this, unfortunately. And you will be at TechCon, correct? Bodo?
Yes, I'm certainly hoping to be there. And I was at the last iteration in 2018, and it's been too long. It's a fantastic event, so I'm hoping to see you there.
Good. Yeah, and everybody, TechCon is scheduled for October 10 and 11 in Las Vegas. As Bodo just mentioned, it's the first one since 2018. And in 5 years, hey, a lot has changed. The iPhone being a great example of that, I guess, what Bodo mentioned earlier. So October 10 and 11 at the Vdara Hotel. Check it out on the NGCOA website. There is limited space available. There's still quite a bit of space, but there is a limitation this year. So you want to, if you want to see the latest and greatest, and people like Bodo and other technology leaders, TechCon is going to be the place to be. Bodo, thank you very much coming to us from Cape Town, South Africa. And you did mention your U.S. office is in Atlanta. So people who are looking to understand, learn more, you have that local U.S. presence, which is important for this country, for golf courses in this country. And they can find everything they need to know and contact at tagmarshal.com.
That's right. Thanks, Harvey. We have a fantastic team in Atlanta, and also anyone coming to take on my colleague David Hamilton, who's our VP of Business Development, will be there, and he's in Augusta, which is not 2 hours away from our office, so we don't make him commute.
Okay.
Great to check in with you again, and thanks for the good questions.
All right. Thank you, Bodo. Take care, everybody.